Hello, I'm Kathleen Hall of CIO Marketing Services. In a competitive customer landscape, all organisations need to work hard for new business. But much like the world of sports, the highest performing ones are those with a dedicated team behind them focused on the next big win. This is where IT teams can play a key role in empowering lines of business to collaborate more transparently, make informed decisions, and gain competitive advantage. In this webinar, brought to you from Smartsheet, we'll discuss the role IT can play in removing barriers to high performance and implementing technology to drive success. We'll also discuss recent research from Smartsheet, which involved interviews with 302 director-level respondents from businesses with more than 1,000 employees from marketing, operations and IT roles, and also involved interviews with leaders from the world of high-performing sports to identify what we can learn from them. Joining me today, I have two guests, Jennifer Swimley, Senior Director of Client Development at Smartsheet, and Gihan Munasinghe, Vice President of Platform Services at Smartsheet. Welcome both. Would you like to say a few words to introduce yourselves?
Absolutely. Thank you. My name is Jennifer Swimley. I run our UK Client Development org here at Smartsheet. I've been here nearly 5 years now, and on a daily basis, I work with our clients. So these clients span from McLaren, the English Cricket Board, to the NHS.
Hi, Kathleen. My name is Gihan. I'm the VP for Platform Services in Smartsheet. I've been in Smartsheet for over 5 years now. In Platform Services, we look after our grid platform where all the customer data is held, all the authentication, administration, and governance features that Smartsheet platform provide, all the data integration services that allows import, export data from external systems, automation workflows, and all of our payment license services and observability platforms.
Thank you so much for being with us today. So I wondered if you could start by telling us, what do we actually mean when we talk about high performance organizations?
Good question, Kathleen. If I look at the work environment and talk about the work environment, I believe high performance is a culture. Also, it does not happen overnight to an organization. Right? So if I look at modern business landscape, things rapidly change. Right? So technology trends changes, customer requirements change, economic climate changes. What was successful last year might not work for tomorrow. So I totally believe that a high performance culture needs to adapt, execute faster, and look for the future all the time.
Yeah, I agree. I think the piece that I would add is a lot of times when you hear the term high performance, you're thinking of someone in the sporting world, a Formula One driver, a fighter pilot, whatever that world may be. But oftentimes, and in the context that we're going to talk about it today, it's within businesses and it's the backbone of IT and how IT can support the rest of the organization to have that high performance.
Thank you both. And could you tell us a bit more about the potential for high performance within the context of IT?
Sure. So if I look at the three areas I brought up earlier, sort of adapt, execute fast, and look for the future, technology plays a big part. So IT in any organization is the key driver for technology innovation, right? So example, looking at manual processes and bringing the necessary tool to automate them, which then allows organizations to execute faster and also make the work more rewarding. Bringing in collaboration tools to help communications more effectively. And also, I think one of the key areas that IT can really help is giving the data visibility into businesses and the key success metrics within that organization. So the teams and the organization in general can make very sort of a corrective data-driven decisions faster, and also as the environment changes, adapt their strategies accordingly.
I think what's interesting and challenging at the same time about IT in particular is that the job is never done. Business initiatives change. Our economic climate is constantly evolving, as we know. Technology developments within the industry are constant. I remember working with one of our top F1 organizations, and they literally had drawers filled with hard drives of certain assets when we started to begin to work with them. And we worked with them. It's been a digitization journey for some months now. But these types of IT upgrades help the rest of the business to move faster, though, of course, they can be time consuming. So we're going to talk about the important areas to kind of focus on throughout here and what we found in our research. But the customers generally that I work with every single day have sort of the same message, which is their teams spend a lot of time every week on manual work, whether that's working in spreadsheets, whether that's replicating work that may already exist elsewhere in the business, providing updates to various teams via different channels. And I know this probably sounds familiar to most of us on the line, but the more that we can reduce these activities, the more we give time back to people to do what they do best, which is think creatively and strategically. So IT is the department that can enable that strategic work by rolling out the right tools.
Thank you. That's a really interesting example. So obviously a lot of work goes on behind the scenes to create success. I wondered if you could tell us what's meant by the 80-20 split.
Sure, Kathleen. Yeah, so you're absolutely correct. The success does not happen overnight, even though sometimes the optics do seems like that. A team winning a World Cup looks like they are an overnight success. However, there are sort of years and years of preparation that goes in, starting from making sure that you have the correct players in the team, making sure you have the correct tools to monitor their performance, correct tools and mechanisms for individual to collaborate effectively towards the common goal of that winning that sort of a tournament. And so there's about, I would say, 80% of your time is prepping, forget that 20% of high performance that you need to execute well. So I would say same apply to the businesses as well. So business need to think about tools they need to bring in to maximize the productivity of their team members, double down on automation so that teams can spend more time on innovating to the future. Identify the key success metrics. We talked about the data visibility in the previous question as well. Make sure that you break down data silos, make sure that you have all the data visible for that when you are making decisions, you can be much more effective and faster on there. So all of that together gives you that extra edge that we call high performance, even in businesses.
Fantastic, thank you. Jennifer, I wondered if I could ask you now, what are some of the barriers to high performance that you see?
Yeah, it's a good question, and it's probably what most folks have tuned in for. I think first off, to just sort of level set, what we found in our research is that only 15% of business leaders actually agree that their organization can consistently achieve goals and objectives within that timeline. And on the IT side, it's a little bit more of an optimistic view. It's about 20% that believe their teams are operating at that high performance level. So from there, what we've identified and what this survey has identified is that there are 5 sort of key areas that are barriers. The first of those is high performance outcome not being defined or fully understood. The second, too much time on reactive rather than strategic mode, which is what I was mentioning earlier. And then communication breakdowns and lack of collaboration, rigid company structures and processes, and lack of investment in technology to support high performance.
Thank you. There's some really interesting points there. So where are the areas in which IT can make the biggest difference to breaking down those barriers?
Yeah, what I've found is most organizations that I speak with aren't often aware that there are multiple tools being deployed in different parts of the organization. So a key role of Smartsheet is to actually support in unifying the tech stack and therefore identify and bridge gaps across these cross-functional teams. So we often work with IT teams to consolidate tools, and therefore we see an increase in adoption because we support with the change management aspect. And a unified tech stack from a commercial standpoint is also a much better investment for the organization. So in this way, IT teams really do become, again, the enabler of high performance, just like a coach or a physio or a sport manager would in the sporting world.
Thanks for that. And did you have anything to add there, Gihan?
Yeah, sure. So So when I look at sort of a organization or any team for that matter, right? You have people, tools, and outcomes that they want to achieve. So I believe the IT role is to make sure that they bring the correct tool set that helps unlock those potential of people to be able to achieve these outcomes, right? So also one thing that I think IT needs to remember is that as your organization grows, your tools and the processes need to change as well, right? So there's the onus on the IT teams that to look at the current needs and the future needs and adapt these technologies accordingly to support the organizational growth as well.
Fantastic, thank you. And you've touched upon it a bit already, but I wondered if you could tell us a bit more about the importance of data visibility in all of this.
Yeah, sure. So I think to make any decision, first you need to understand where you are currently at, right? Also, it helps you to identify trends and plan ahead if you know where things are already going. So where we talked about one of those barriers as being more reactive than being proactive. I think data visibility actually helps you to be very proactive onto what is happening within your organization and within the business landscape, so that you can be very much can make decisions proactively rather than being reactive all the time. So if I had to take an example, like I can give an example in how our product and engineering org works within Smartsheet as well. We invest a lot in our observability systems, right? Even though like all of our teams work in a very distributed manner in different time zones, we have one centralized observability platform. This actually helps the whole of the organization to have a single view about our health of our services day in, day out. So everybody sees the same view of where what our systems are doing and where our business is going at any given time. Also, our teams looked at the health of their systems all the time, look at trend lines and proactively identify any bottlenecks, scaling concerns, and fix them before our customers actually get impacted. So this actually helps our teams to be very much proactive and sort of predict what is going to happen and do the changes proactively rather than waiting for customers to sell or waiting till our monitors to fire and say, hey, something has gone wrong. So this actually helps our teams to become sort of a highly productive and perform much more efficiently, having this full data visibility throughout.
Fantastic, thank you. I suppose part of the point of data visibility is getting the right data in front of the right people as well. I wondered if you had any thoughts on how IT teams can ensure that different teams within the business can use data in more effective ways. And also the point about having too much technology and how that can sometimes cloud an organization's ability to harness data and collaborate.
Yep. So I think the first step needs to be a tech stack audit, right? You need to know what you're working with at all levels of the business. So oftentimes this can come from heads of department coming together, users coming together and sharing feedback, and then the business analyzing and assessing that. And any applications that are redundant, i.e., two competitor solutions that we may not need both of those if they're achieving the same function. They could be being used in different teams. Maybe they don't integrate with one another. So my team and I often work with customers to consult on this type of consolidation initiative. And that's where I would say the important place to start is.
Absolutely. Did you have anything to add on that point, Gihan?
Yeah, so I think when you talk about, Jennifer brought up a good point about tools, right? And when you talk about tools and some data systems, within the organization, there are systems which are pretty much optimized for particular use case, right? And they are really needed sometimes in the organization as well, so to speak, like best tool to do the job sort of a way, right? So the same way that you think about sort of consolidating your tools, you should also look at how you can consolidate data as well. Like to give some example, I've seen a lot of customer use cases where they use Smartsheet as their work management hub by bringing data from different systems in an automated manner and collaborating on them. So this sort of integrations really help and teams to move faster without going through a large sort of a time consuming IT transformation as well. So something to think about as we talk about consolidating.
Yeah, definitely. So just to bring in the Smartsheet research, there's a really interesting point that 9 in 10 respondents said that communication breakdowns are actually the biggest enemy to high performance. Now, given the rise of hybrid and remote work, that obviously places a kind of particular pressure on IT teams to address that problem. What steps do you think IT leaders could take to do that?
Yep. I think we often see that global organizations with employees in multiple regions speaking multiple languages often find that communication breakdown. And a lot of that is, in this post-COVID world. So organizations, what we found, will tend to have their own internal processes, i.e. they're a Microsoft house or a Google house. And most businesses are set up to work cross-functionally. But as Gihan mentioned earlier, IT can help build that single source of truth for communication across these various areas, which can help drive accountability and progress and visibility throughout, multiple aspects of the organization.
Thank you. And Gihan?
Yeah, so I think the communication and collaboration is a big part of sort of a teams being effective as well. Like, so if you think about collaboration, I would say there's normally two types of collaboration. Like sort of a real-time collaboration is something like what we are doing now, right? So everybody's in the same place, you can talk to each other, and you can do the communication. And then obviously what we call the synchronous communication and collaboration that happens. So as Jennifer pointed out, well, like, when the organization grows, like more of your collaborations becomes async, right? So to speak, like the tools that IT provide to support them really need to support this idea of sort of a synchronous collaboration and communication. Like even if I look at Smartsheet, we are distributed among multiple locations and time zone, UK, US, Australia, so to speak. Trying to do real-time collaboration is almost like sort of impossible to get a time that suits all of these different time zones. So most of our communication and collaboration do happen in a very async manner. And of course, we use Smartsheet internally to manage our day-to-day work. And so when you talk about sort of moving bit into sort of asynchronous communication, and collaboration, I would say one of the most important things is sort of being very efficient on your communication and reduce the ambiguity as much as possible when you're doing sort of a synchronous collaboration. So to speak, like you really don't want somebody to wake up to a communication that says, hey, here's 100 documents, go figure out what you have to do now. And then that is not a good place to be for anyone to be in. So you're almost like your communication really need to be effective in a way that you can always sort of push the person who's you're collaborating with almost to a call to action sort of a way. So like to give up some sort of a example, like if you want somebody to approve a marketing design, right? The simplistic communication should be, here's the link to the design and here's a approve and reject button, right? And also having those ability to get these communications into your natural notification mechanisms that you already use day in, day out would help the collaboration to go much more smoothly. So again, when you're looking at the tools that you want to bring in to help this kind of collaboration, I think those things do really matter as well. How people work, how our employees behave, and all of those things need to be taught by IT leaders when they talk about, okay, we are bringing in a collaborative platform to help with our communication.
Thank you. There's obviously huge potential to make some big difference there. We've obviously covered a lot of interesting points on this topic. I just wondered if there are any other challenges that you think that IT should consider when taking all of this on board.
Yeah, I think at some point in our careers, we all have probably experienced an unsuccessful solution rollout. And so the kind of key area that I'd like to draw attention to is in working with clients, I've found that IT can make the relevant changes and rollouts if they're really close to the business. So a deep understanding of their KPIs by various departments, strategic business objectives and ultimately how the business makes revenue. But without that connectivity, these IT changes may not get the internal buy-in that they need in order to really be successful and get off the ground.
Absolutely. And Gihan, did you have anything to add there?
Yeah, I would say like security and governance plays a big role as well on any large scale rollout, and also making sure that whatever the solution which is being rolled out to the organization, as the organization grows, those governance and large scale management makes a big sort of a play as well. So I've seen, again, solutions not working. Like they would work for sort of a 5 people, but when you think about sort of a 10,000 plus organization, the rollout becomes quite hard for the IT, because like it doesn't support the correct governance mechanisms, doesn't hook with the company's standard login mechanisms and things like that. So there are things that which comes in line with solution rollout.
Thank you. And finally, I'd just like to ask, what would be your key takeaway for our audience listening at home?
I think mine would be, don't be afraid to challenge the status quo. As Gihan and I were talking about earlier, change is constant. We know this. So oftentimes IT has the ability to reassess, change course, and challenge maybe what's been done within the business for some time. Digital transformation is key, right? So we've got to continuously question and move the needle forward.
Yeah. I think same for me as well. Like Jennifer pointed out, what worked last year might not work this year. So sort of look into the future, and also always evaluating how technology can help you to push further and innovate. I think keep an open mind would be the best thing for any organization to become high performant.
Well, unfortunately, that brings us to the end of today's webinar on how IT can act as an enabler to high performance in business. To find out more about how Smartsheet can help drive high performance in your business and to download their latest report, please visit the console section on your screens. I'd like to thank our guests for joining us and for our audience for listening at home. I'm Kathleen Hall. Goodbye.